Game of Thrones finally landed in Seville to shoot dragon pit scenes in Italica. More than a dozen cast members showed up, and the list is quite interesting and surprising. Without any confirmation of the contrary, if we are to assume that every cast member that landed in Seville will shoot, this filming will include 19 main characters. The dragon pit scenes would include the entire Stark family, Jon Snow, Bran, Sansa and Arya, all the Lannisters, Tyrion, Jaime and Cersei, only one Greyjoy, Yara, most of Dany's team, Varys, Jorah Mormont, Grey Worm, but without Dany herself, Davos Seaworth, Brienne of Tarth, Sam Tarly, Gendry, Robin Arryn, and the final three that make this list both shocking and surprising, the Night King, Jaqen H'ghar and the Waif. There are also a few absences that are perhaps even more intriguing, especially given that many of their companions are there. Dany's entire team is there except for Missandei. Also, even though Cersei is present, she's alone. Her most trusted people, Qyburn and the Mountain, are not there, nor is her only ally Euron Greyjoy. Characters like, for example, Theon Greyjoy, Tormund, Bronn Podrick, and many more are also not there. Taking into account that these dragon pit scenes are by many sources assumed to take place in the final season's finale, it could mean that some of these characters may be dead at this point. A few days ago, Emilia Clarke, an actress that portrays Dany, said that the ending of Game of Thrones will be what none of us think it will be, and the presence of the Night King with the entire living side at Dragon Pit does ring some bells. The Great War. A war between the living and the dead is what the entire series has been leading to. From the very first scene, we've learned that eventually it will all come to the point where the politics, wars among the kings, queens and lords will be ended by approaching Army of the Dead and their leader, the Night King. Season 7 finale left us with the Army of the Dead, the greatest threat Westeros has ever seen, marching south after breaching the wall. Obviously, we're all expecting the Great War. Numerous epic scenes with Jon at the very end defeating the Night King. But we must consider the ending that none of us expect. In my opinion, that's a pact between the living and the dead, a pact of ice and fire. There will be the Great War raging in Westeros for the most of the final season, but eventually, upon both sides have taken many casualties, the living and the dead will make a pact. The most popular fan theory regarding the Game of Thrones ending would definitely be Dany's sacrifice and death in order to end the long night, and her absence from this meeting will definitely make this theory more fans. Both Jon and Dany are tied to the Azor High prophecy, which includes a historic legend of a hero sacrificing his love in order to save the world from the long night. Melisandre already told Daenerys that she has a role to play in the prophecy, as does Jon Snow. Daenerys' role in the long night by this theory would be her taking a sword into her heart as a sacrifice required to win the Great War. However, while this theory would most certainly match with George R. R. Martin's announced bittersweet ending, the Night King's presence on the Dragon Pit meeting does seem to indicate that this theory is not likely to come true. I still believe that a theory of mine will come true. Is Daenerys becoming the Night's Queen? The Night's Queen is an unseen woman in Game of Thrones, a legendary figure known in the Seven Kingdoms and among the Free Folk. According to a legend, the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch found in the Haunted Forest a cold woman with bright blue eyes. He took her to the other side of the wall and declared himself as the Night's King. Earlier in Game of Thrones, we learned that the leader of the White Walkers, the Night King, is able to create other White Walkers, but it seems that he can only create one, if that human being is a pure-blooded incest-born. This means that the Night's King could return Daenerys into one of them, since Dany is a pure-blooded incest-born daughter of King Aerys and Queen Rhaella Targaryen. The only way for the living side to end the long night is to either defeat them, which would be insanely hard, or to make a pact, which would indeed explain the Night King's presence on the Dragon Pit meeting with the leaders of the living side. This pact of ice and fire would include Daenerys. Have you ever wondered why is the Night King even coming south? Why was he preparing an army all those years with which he started marching south at the moment of Daenerys' arrival at Westeros? I was wondering about that ever since the 6th season ended, and I came to a conclusion that Daenerys' arrival at Westeros is the reason of the Night King's preparations, the reason of his march south, and is the reason of every single death that the Seven Kingdoms is going to confront. Dany could have won the throne as soon as she arrived at Westeros if she had wanted to. As Jon stated, Dany hasn't taken the throne yet only because many innocent people would have died if she had decided to storm the King's Landing. She didn't attack King's Landing because she didn't want to cause death upon millions of innocent people, and she will not ever sit on the Iron Throne because she will decide to give up her life so all those people, including her child, could live. Dany will accept a pact with the Night King in order to end the long night. She will become the Night's Queen, whereupon she and the Night King will go beyond the wall and rule over it, as a form of peace agreement between the living and the dead. Dany's arrival at Westeros and the Night King's preparations and his march to the south fits perfectly in timeline. I don't think it's coincidence that all those years the Night King was preparing and gathering a huge army with which he started marching south at the same time of Dany's arrival at Westeros. Also the fact that the show included multiple scenes that are proving that the Night King can create other White Walkers only if that human being is pure-blooded, incest-born, has to be foreshadowing something huge. Add to that the fact that Daenerys is incest-born daughter of King Aerys and Queen Rhaella Targaryen, and this theory has a huge chance of coming true. Not only that this theory would be one of the greatest surprises that showrunners could pull out in the final season's finale, but it would also fit perfectly with the bittersweet ending that George R. R. Martin announced. Daenerys will in this theory die in the hands of the Night King as Daenerys and will shortly after open her eyes as the Night's Queen. This is the end almost none of us would see coming. As I already said, we'll expect the Great War to end with one winner, whether it's Jon, Dany and the Living, or the Night King and the Army of the Dead. What majority of us don't expect is the Great War to end with a pact, with an agreement between the Westerosi leader and the Night King. Now, let's see other characters that are shockingly attending this huge meeting in the Dragon Pit. It's Jaqen H'ghar and the Waif. The bigger surprise here, however, is the Waif. She was an acolyte of the Faceless Man, serving in the House of Black and White in Braavos until Arya Stark killed her, adding the Waif's face to the Hall of Faces. Or at least that's what we think happened. There's quite a popular theory of the Waif actually being victorious in a fight against Arya and actually using her face this entire time. So basically this theory states that Arya died in a fight against the Waif, and the Waif has been wearing Arya's face and portraying her ever since. But let's get a bit back to see all the hints and clues that support this theory. After Arya survived multiple stab wounds, leaping out a window, falling down the stairs, and after apparently managing to defeat the Waif, Arya did something even more strange. Even though Jaqen did state that there's not a third chance, he basically said that Arya must die, Arya still felt a need to say farewell to her mentor. Which is strange to say the least, as the only logical choice would be to run away from Braavos as soon as you can, especially when the Faceless Men are after you. As we all know, Arya came back to the House of Black and White with a face that is apparently face of the Waif, which is surprising that Arya could barely stand, not to mention fight and win against the Waif. On top of all of those facts, Arya also seemingly recovered from serious wounds and blood loss in short amount of time. While some of us would tell that Lady Crane was of tremendous help to Arya, might have even healed her in a short amount of time, some of us could also tell that Arya played it very smart. Arya on purpose headed to that dark chamber in a room in which she had hidden her sword in a room that had only one source of light, a candle that Arya sliced as she estimated that her chance of surviving is good. The room faded black and the next thing we see is Jaqen entering the Hall of Faces, where he finds out that Arya killed the Waif. Upon learning this, Jaqen was surprisingly happy about Arya reclaiming her identity and her intentions to go home. Even though some of us could tell that Arya outsmarted and eventually bested the Waif, there are some things that are quite strange. Could it be that Arya did not survive? Could it be that the person that returned to the House of Black and White was the Waif wearing Arya's face? Well, there's certainly a possibility. The Waif, just as Arya, had also been training to become no one, so perhaps by killing and becoming Arya, she passed her test and became the Faceless Man. This would explain why the Waif was interested and was in fact knowing almost every single detail about Arya's whole life and about her family, which is something that the Faceless Men have to do before they take someone's face, before they become that same person, before they become no one. Gather all the information about someone's life so they could portray that person as best as they can. Arya, by proving that she will never be no one, which she proved by hiding her sword instead of giving it up with all the other things associated with her old life, by killing someone without the many-faced god's blessing, and finally purposely failing to assassinate Lady Crane, made Jaqen H'ghar to fulfill his promise that he gave to the Waif, made Jaqen to let the Waif kill Arya. With all this being said, if the Waif actually killed and took Arya's face, it would explain Jaqen's farewell words that he said to Arya, who is by this theory actually the Waif wearing Arya's face. He said, "Finally a girl is no one," something that Arya certainly never became. Jaqen being proud, Jaqen saying that a girl has finally become no one might be referred to the Waif, as she has also been trying to prove that she can be no one, and maybe by not just killing Arya but also wearing Arya's face and becoming Arya is the ultimate proof that she finally became one. Also, we should consider Jaqen's smile upon Arya's statement, I'm quoting, "A girl is Arya Stark of Winterfell and I'm going home," which is something to think about. If this theory is true, if Arya actually is dead and if the Waif is wearing her face, Jaqen now has a reliable member of the Faceless Men masquerade